I told them to stop. They didn't listen. Susan tore out my wife's rose bush, turned my driveway into a shortcut for soccer parents and HOA enforcers. So I built something buried deep under the gravel, steel, pressure-loaded, hidden. When her BMW rolled in like she owned the place, I hit the switch. Boom. Her tires burst like balloons at a kid's party. She screamed. I sipped my coffee. Right then, she knew. This wasn't her road. It was mine, and her trespassing days were over. My name's Tom Bennett. I'm 45, a retired engineer with a dog, a toolbox, and a house too big for one man. 3 years ago, I was a husband, a planner, a man with a future. Then my wife, Laura, died in a head-on crash with a drunk driver, coming home from buying a cake for my birthday. They said she didn't suffer. I did. Something in me kept going, but it wasn't living, not really. I left my job at a logistics firm and started consulting from home. No meetings, no fake smiles, just designs, code, and Riley, our golden retriever, who stayed by Laura's side until the end and now sticks to mine. Laura and I bought this house together, our dream home, a corner lot with a curved driveway, set back from the road like a private haven. She called it our secret garden. We planted trees, built a bird bath, buried a time capsule with love notes and a cheap bottle of wine, meant to be opened on our 25th anniversary. We only made it to 11. This house became my world. The creak of the porch swing, the sunlight on the front steps, the cracks in the driveway we laid ourselves. It was all I had left. So when strangers started driving through like it was a public road, it felt like they were trampling her memory. At first, it was just tire marks, maybe a neighbor's kid practicing turns. But they got deeper, messy, eh? Then one morning, I found a laminated sign staked into my lawn. Community flow access, temporary routing approved by HOA. I stood there, gripping the sign, feeling like it spat on Laura's grave. My land, our land was now a shortcut, no permission, no discussion. I drove to the HOA office, a repurposed model home smelling of stale paper and lemon cleaner. There was Susan, the HOA president, exactly as you'd picture, rigid blonde hair, arched eyebrows, a smug air of superiority. Her mint green cardigan and pearl earrings screamed authority, and she clutched an iPad like a scepter. Her smile was syrupy, with a bitter edge. "Mr. Bennett, right?" she said. "Parcel 82A, lovely lot. We've implemented a temporary traffic solution for construction on Elm Street. Just a few weeks." "It's my land," I said. "Private. Not for shortcuts." She didn't flinch, tapping her iPad with manicured nails. "Technically, your property borders the community line, making it a soft access zone if the board approves." "Soft access zone?" I demanded. "Show me where that's written." She gave a smile that made my skin crawl. "We'll review the paperwork at the next meeting, second Tuesday next month. By then, the road work will be done. So strangers can use my driveway, and I get a promise to talk after it's over?" "We're a community, Mr. Bennett," she said, like I'd failed a test. "It's about unity." Unity. The word stung, thrown at a man who'd lost everything and asked for nothing. I left, hands shaking not from fear, but fury. Maybe it was temporary. Maybe a gate or sign would fix it. Then I woke to digging. They'd ripped out Laura's rose bush, replaced it with gravel, cones, and a sign. "Exit only, please drive slow." On my land. Barefoot, with Riley beside me, I stared at the mess like it was her tombstone defaced. Susan wasn't just a nuisance with an eye patch, was a tyrant in pastels, and she'd picked the wrong fight. The war started quietly, with SUVs and minivans crawling through. By week's end, my driveway was a highway. I'd sit on the porch, coffee in hand, as cars snaked by like they were late for school. One woman waved like I was her doorman. Another honked when my trash cans blocked her path. A kid skateboarded down the curve, nearly hitting Riley, who barked him off his board. I apologized. He flipped me off. That's when I stopped saying sorry. The final straw, a mom in a minivan pulled up, rolled down her window, and asked if I could shift my mailbox just a bit for a wider turn. That night, my neighbor Greg lingered by my fence. Greg was quiet, the kind who helped with holiday lights but stayed silent unless you offered him a beer. Tonight, he looked uneasy. "Tom," he said, "I didn't want to get involved, but Susan's making moves. She's petitioning the county to reclassify your driveway as a neighborhood easement emergency access for community safety flow. She's got 2 board members on board. Needs 3 more to submit the paperwork. My mouth went dry. She's trying to steal my land? Greg nodded. Not figuratively, literally. That night, I stood in the driveway, Riley at my side, boots sinking into their gravel. Headlights flashed across my porch. This wasn't a misunderstanding, it was an invasion. I cracked a beer, stared at the ground, and muttered, "They think I'll fold." But I designed deterrent systems for restricted zones: tire shredders, retractable bollards, remote locks. If Susan wanted a road, she'd learn how roads could bite. I called my cousin, Mike, a lawyer who filed lawsuits from his phone and stored documents in his garage. When I told him everything, he cut me off. Documented all pictures, videos, plates, timestamps. Don't block them yet. Let them think they're winning. Why? I asked. Because when we hit, it's with evidence, not emotion. We'll bury them in paperwork so deep they'll need a map to breathe. He told me to install cameras, record every car, every mark, every sign, and leave everything untouched for now. They're tearing up my land, I said. Every inch they touch is another nail in their coffin, Mike replied. So I became a surveillance expert. Trail cams in the bushes, motion lights, infrared. I sipped coffee with Riley as cars zipped through like it was a theme park, waiting for Susan to overstep. She didn't take long. The next morning, Riley growled at the back fence. Outside, 4 guys in neon vests were sawing through it, not trimming, not fixing, sawing. One turned, casual as if I'd interrupted his break. Susan approved this. We're connecting the park trail for flow. This is my fence, I said, stepping forward. You're on my land. He shrugged. Community adjacent. No permit needed. They left when I mentioned the sheriff, but the damage was done. A 5-foot gap in my fence, like a hole punched in my life. I called Mike. Good, he said. Let them dig their grave. Now we go on offense. We filed a cease and desist letter and a preliminary injunction with the county, backed by photos, footage, and every HOA violation. But that was Mike's side. I was working on the mechanical one. They wanted flow. They'd get a lesson in resistance. I woke to tires crunching gravel, then more, then 3 more. It was time. Riley stood by the window, ears up. He knew something was coming. So did I. In the garage, I flipped a hidden switch in the breaker box. A quiet hum, a green light me system was live. I grabbed the remote from the pegboard, poured coffee, and stepped onto the porch. Susan came first, her white BMW gliding in like she owned the place. She didn't slow, didn't notice the gravel's subtle texture shift. Behind her, 2 SUVs and a minivan, a parade of entitlement. I watched them hit the trigger zone, coordinates I'd mapped with the precision of a man who'd designed dock traps. Susan's front wheels crossed the hidden steel plate. I pressed the button. A sharp hiss of air and metal defiance made real. Crunch. Her tires exploded, the BMW lurching like a wounded beast, halting in the driveway, rubber flapping. The cars behind screeched to a stop. Susan stumbled out, heels wobbling, dust speckling her pressed slacks and teal blouse. She stared at the tires, then at me, and screamed, "You sabotaged a community road." I raised my voice for the drivers to hear. "Private drive. You were warned." She pointed at the gravel. "There are spikes in there." "Yep," I said, calm as dawn. "Retractable, legal, documented. There's a sign at the entrance you ignored." She hesitated, then snarled, "You'll hear from the HOA." I smiled. "And you'll hear from Mike." She glared, then hissed, "Just for me. I wonder what Laura would think of this." My blood froze. She'd crossed a line. I said nothing, just walked inside. I didn't need to fight her, I'd already won. An hour later, a certified letter arrived from the HOA, demanding I remove dangerous installations and accusing me of endangering the community. Mike's reply, sent overnight, was a masterpiece: cease and desist, trespassing claims, damages, video evidence, and a trail cam photo of Susan's car passing the warning sign. But Susan didn't quit. Narcissists don't retreat, they escalate. She called an emergency HOA meeting. Mike and I arrived late, deliberately. The room was packed: folding chairs, stale coffee, suburban politics. Susan sat at the head, photos of her shredded tires spread out like evidence. She saw me and smiled like a predator. "This man," she declared, standing, "has endangered our community with military-style traps on a shared route." I raised a hand. She ignored me. Mike didn't. In a garish Hawaiian shirt, he passed out copies of my deed. "This isn't a shared RT, it's private property. You voted based on false information. That's fraud. That's liability." The room went quiet. Susan flushed. "He's exaggerating." Mike grinned. "Let's talk about this." He played footage. Susan's tech guy, Nate, at 2:14 a.m., cutting caution tape, tampering with my gate. Gasps. Murmurs. A woman muttered, "Is that Nate?" Another voice, "Susan, didn't you forge my signature last year?" Mike eyed Susan. "This was organized by the HOA. You're responsible." A board member stood. "I move for a vote of no confidence." "Seconded," another said. Hands shot up, except Greg. She hesitated, then raised his last. Susan's face paled. She turned to me, voice low. "This isn't over, Tom. You think a vote ends this? You don't know how far I'll go." I met her stare. "But I know how far I'll go to protect what's mine." She stormed out, heels clicking like a retreating army. I walked home with Riley, the gravel crunching like applause. The battlefield had shifted. I wasn't defending anymore, I was hunting. The vote ousted Susan, but she didn't vanish. She slithered underground, plotting. 2 weeks later, flyers appeared in mailboxes. "Together We Flow," signed Susan, community advisor, a self-invented title. Then an envelope on my garage, county letterhead, notice of investigation, unauthorized land modifications, obstruction of community access. I laughed. It wasn't from the county, it was Susan's complaint. Mike cursed. Her Hail Mary. If she can't win with votes, she'll drown you in red tape. I wasn't cracking. I was ready. The inspector arrived 3 days later, clipboard, sunglasses, world-weary. Riley barked once, then sat like a guard. "You Tom Bennett?" I nodded. "Hear about the complaint. Need to look around." "Be my guest," I said, pointing to 3 color-coded binders on the porch. Zoning, property rights, HOA overreach. He flipped through, silence turning to respect. "You built this spike system?" "Prototyped it years ago. Retractable, solar-powered, legal." He whistled. "Saw something like this in a Seattle yard." He stopped at a forged map Susan submitted, my driveway labeled Emergency Route B. "She sent this to us. It's not in the official record." I nodded. "We've got meeting footage where she unveiled it. Timestamped, public." He exhaled. "That's a problem for her." Softer, he added, "You've done your homework. Wish more homeowners fought like you." He snapped a photo of the map, glanced at Riley, and nodded. "I'll file the report today." What followed didn't make headlines, but shook the neighborhood. The county audited every HOA decision Susan touched. Contracts, permits, spending. She'd used HOA funds for a $600 printer for her home, a $1,400 community branding order, banners with her face, and a wellness retreat under her maiden name. She was fined, banned from HOA leadership for 5 years, and faced a criminal probe. Board members resigned. Bylaws were rewritten. Susan vanished. Some said she left town. Others, she hid at her brother's condo, lurking on neighborhood forums like a ghost. The shortcut died. The gravel hardened. My sign stayed. Private property, no through traffic, trespassers will be spiked. One day, Greg brought a brown paper Pacagea cartoon from his kid's notebook, a sad tire saying, "I regret everything." "You earned this," he said. I laughed, a real laugh, the first in years. That weekend, we grilled burgers, a casual invite turned block party. Neighbors brought chairs, beers, even a pie from a woman who once fined me for my recycling bin. Mike arrived in his worst Hawaiian shirt, waving a fake certificate. To Tom Bennett, for outstanding defense against tyranny. It was absurd and perfect. That night, with Riley at my feet, I stepped into the driveway. The wind was still, the gravel glinting under the porch light. I checked the spike system, armed, ready, but unneeded. This wasn't about gravel or fence, it was about the life Laura and I built, the peace we planned. This time, no one would take it. As I turned off the light, I caught a red blink across the street, a hidden camera, still watching. Riley growled softly. I stared into the dark and whispered, "Let her try." Then I closed the door. Susan was gone, but maybe not forever.